Okay, so The Amazing Spider-Man 2, or as I am dubbing it, The Amazing Spider-Man 2 3'd, as British film critic Mark Kermode would call it, because every film is in 3D now. At least any film that has a budget bigger than $50 million has to be in 3D, because James Cameron said that's the way it has to be. He put his foot down and said, I created Titanic, I created Avatar, and you will now all do what I say and make your movies in 3D. And they don't even do the little dash. It used to be 3-D. Now it's just 3 combined with a D, so it's 3'd. So it's The Amazing Spider-Man 2 3'd. And I just want to let people know, if you're thinking of paying to see a movie in 3D, I want to make it very clear, you're paying for an inferior picture quality. In order to create a 3D image, they have to take a picture of the picture. And anyone who knows anything about photography will tell you, when you take a picture of a picture, more flaws appear. You lose what's called one generation. So it's a little bit more flawed. It's a little bit more grainy. It's not as clear. The colors start to run a little bit. It's a little bit dimmer. And that's what you're paying for when you pay for a 3D movie. You're getting an image in which the colors are a little more muted. The picture quality is a little dim. There's a few more flaws than there were in the 2D version. And I just want people to know that the people who paid $10 are seeing a better quality image than the people who paid $15 to see it in 3D. So if you're paying to see this in 3D, I want to make it perfectly clear, you're paying to see an inferior quality picture.
I will not pay more money to see something in 3D. If it was offered at the same price, depending on the movie, if it's an action movie that I think this might have good 3D effects, I may see it in 3D, but I'm not paying more.
Pass, period. You'll get a better quality picture with a 2D image. That's why IMAX is the way to go. You see Christopher Nolan has started shooting that way, and now you're seeing other directors follow his lead. The Divergent film was one of those movies in which they shot in some scenes in IMAX and converted it for IMAX rather than going the 3D route, because even they started to realize, you know what, people aren't paying to see this gimmick anymore, so we're going to cut it out and not charge people an exorbitant amount of money for an inferior quality of product. So I just want to make that perfectly clear. Please go see it in the regular old brand spanking new 2D version. It's the best way to see a movie.
So action galore, unbelievable scenes. Was any of this filmed in Chicago?
No, none of this was filmed in Chicago. It takes place in New York. Why would they film in
wasn't the last one filmed in Chicago? Or was that a couple of Spider-Mans ago?
No Spider-Man movie was ever filmed in
No.
Chicago.
What was the one where he was on the L? There was one where, yeah. It might have been like one of the lame ones from before, but I'll look into that. Okay. Tell us about this Spider-Man.
Well, anyway, this is The Amazing Spider-Man 2. This is the sequel from The Amazing Spider-Man, which was released several years ago. And we all know that Sam Raimi did the first 3 Spider-Man movies, Spider-Man 1, 2, and 3. He was going to do Spider-Man 4. He didn't get the villains he wanted, so he said, well, I'm going to take my ball and go home. And they said, all right, fine. We'll reboot it with a new Spider-Man and a new director, and we'll create our own new legacy away from yours. And for people who know me, they know that the first Sam Raimi films, the first 2 are really, really, really well liked by comic book fans. I did not like them. I thought, that was kind of my reaction towards the first 2. I was like,
Spider-Man 2 was filmed in Chicago, the one you're talking about, from 2004.
Spider-Man 3 was, I thought, an abysmal film. And most people agreed with me on that this film's a train wreck. It's time to reboot the franchise. So they did it with The Amazing Spider-Man. I went in going, great, I have to sit through another Spider-Man film. I don't particularly like this character. I thought the first 3 films were very boring. How are they going to make this compelling? And I was pleasantly surprised. The director, Mark Webb, did a great job bringing this character to life. I liked Andrew Garfield. I liked Emma Stone. I liked Dennis Leary as the disapproving father of Gwen Stacy, who knows there's something more to Peter Parker when no one else really does. I enjoyed the fact that they had a fresh, interesting, and somewhat bold take on the character. They went, you know what, everyone sees Spider-Man this way, but actually we're going to tell a story in which he's a different way. Something that hasn't been seen before, something that hasn't really been talked about before, something that's not as true to the comics, but we're going to kind of tell our own version of the Spider-Man story. And I left thinking, wow, I liked it. It was fresh. It was invigorating. It took chances. It was trying to be different from every other comic book film. It made it very clear this is not Sam Raimi's Spider-Man. This is a different universe with different characters where there are different consequences for your actions. And I went into Spider-Man 2 thinking, this is fantastic. How are they going to refresh it again? How are they going to be bold? How are they going to be different? And they simply just remade the first one.
That's a good thing, right? Because the first one was so good.
I was crushed. so dull, Kevin. Everything I loved about the first movie, I went, wow, that was different, that was fresh, that was inventive. In The Amazing Spider-Man 2, it was repetitive, ridiculous, and annoying.
Wow.
It's like there were scenes in this film in which I really felt that everyone involved was going, hey, that joke we just made, we made a similar joke in the first one and you all found it funny, so we did it again. Do you still like it? No. When you tell me the same joke over and over again, it becomes less funny. When you tell me the same story over and over again, it's not as compelling and it's not as interesting. And the whole thing with this film is they simply continue to hit the same themes from the first film. If there's anything we've learned from comic book movies, it's that from first movie to second movie to third movie has to have a different theme. You know, Christopher Nolan talked about with the Batman films how in Batman Begins, it was about how he became Batman. Just like in The Amazing Spider-Man 1, it's how he became Spider-Man and how would the world react to such a character. And then Christopher Nolan said when they made The Dark Knight, they knew they simply just couldn't carry that theme through the movie. Through the second movie, they had to change the story. And the story in the second film, The Dark Knight, was about escalation. All right, now he's arrived in this world. Now the world has reacted. How do they then adapt to the character? And this whole film is still obsessed with the fact that, well, we don't know if Spider-Man's a good guy or a bad guy, or I'm still trying to figure out how I'm going to balance my work life and my professional life and my love life and my Spider-Man life and still act like a normal teenager. And after a while, you're just going, yes, it was interesting the first time you said it to me. Tell me something different. Show me, you know what? How would the world adapt to the idea if they know there's a man dressed as in a red and blue leotard who slings webs, climbs buildings, and saves people? You almost blew up the city last time. That's how the first film ends. The city almost blows up, and everyone almost turns into lizard people. Spider-Man saves the day. Spider-Man 2 opens up with, can we really trust this guy? He saved the city from getting blown up. Why are you hammering me with the same repetitive point? Tell me a different story.
How are the action scenes in it?
Boring, bland, unoriginal.
That's too bad.
I've seen it before. You know, slow motion was cool the first time you did it. When every fight scene is in slow motion, not as compelling. That's the theme I'm trying to hit with Kevin with this review, is that The Amazing Spider-Man 2, you could have dropped the 2 and I wouldn't have been able to tell the difference, other than that just there were different villains.
So a definite don't see.
There was nothing else compelling about it. The only compelling thing that I found about this film was at the end of the first movie. Dennis Leary's character, he plays Emma Stone's father in the film. Something happens to him where he's no longer going to be able to be around. And he says before he leaves that you have to promise me you're going to stay away from my daughter if you're going to continue to be Spider-Man. You have to choose her or the costume. And the movie starts off with he's still doing both. He's still with Emma Stone, but he still is being Spider-Man. And how he is being tormented by the idea that he made this promise and is breaking it each and every day. That subplot, which was really interesting and a fresh idea of what happens when the hero breaks his promise. They drop it halfway through the movie. They just decide, we don't want to do that anymore. We're going to drop that. And you're just sitting there going, that was the part of the film that was different, though. Why are you showing me another slow motion web slinging scene? I've seen it for 4 movies. Do something else.